Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your kayak fishing accessory needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. The 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the153anglers.com. Now let's get this show started.
Welcome back to the Reel Down, everybody. Got another great episode. It's just me hosting tonight. Drew's, we talked about it in the last few episodes. Coming into the off season, he's got some baby stuff handling right now, so he'll be in and out when he can make it. What we're going to do today is always a hot topic in tournament fishing, is just like the title says, rules. And we're going to be covering a little bit of everything: motors, boundaries, portaging rules, electronics, trolling, fish placements, scoring. We're going to hit all of it. And to do that, I brought in a couple of the guest hosts with us, Armando and the Queen Susie. What's going on, y'all?
So I'm going to interrupt this whole little podcast thing for just a hot second because Hobie just released the rest of their schedule.
I saw you excited on the green room. I'm like, what is she so pumped up about?
Breaking news on the podcast.
Breaking news.
Damn it, I typed in the wrong password on my phone. I can't find it.
Is it on Facebook or?
Oh, yeah, it's on Facebook. So
I was watching you. I was like, what is she so pumped up about? It's Tuesday. Oh, here we go.
I'm very, very interested in that Wisconsin event.
I literally don't think I want to do any of these.
Come on, man.
I might go to Lake to Chick just because it's still on my list. Eufaula would be good at the time they're doing it. I don't know. I don't even know what or when or if I will fish tournaments next year. I don't know. I might just sell all my fishing stuff and be a full-time podcaster.
Hey.
I'll run out of money in 35 minutes, but
all the money you spend on fishing, you're gonna save.
I could sell one kayak and I could be all right. I've debated it. Just I'm not using it, but yeah. So getting back on track, we're gonna get on rules. Before we get too far into it, if everyone wouldn't mind just saying a quick prayer for Brian. I'm not going to get into what's going on, but his family definitely needs some prayers right now. Y'all do y'all's thing. Everybody knows what to do in that situation, but we love you, buddy. Praying for you and the family. But yeah, we won't get into none of the sad stuff. So we're going to hop right into the what you got?
I said well said.
Oh, well said. I thought I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, like I said in the beginning, there's so many topics we're going to hit here, and we'll go ahead and warn everybody this one may go a little long because there is a lot to talk about here. And this is a good time to talk about it. Coming into the end of the seasons, that's when tournament directors get together and changes are made, clubs vote on new rules, stuff like that. So the first one I want to hit is probably the most annoying to talk about, and it is motors. Okay. So I will give my speech on how I feel about it, and then I will let y'all, because I don't even know if y'all have the same mindset on it. But for me, I don't feel like motors should be banned from certain tournament events. That being said, I understand, if you create a very grassroots level club, as long as you keep everything grassroots level, I perfectly agree with that. If you're going to go man-powered, you go completely man-powered. But that being said, I haven't ever seen where there are any competitive advantages to a motor. Yes, you can cover more water more efficiently, but there are tons of evidence and cases, in fact, where an angler does exceptional paddling or sitting at the boat ramp, or even in brief history, the Bassmaster Classic was won at a ramp. The guy that got in second place pedaled because his motor system died, and then he broke his pedal system and paddled. And he first and second were man powered. There's a lot of arguments against having motors, and other than we just don't allow it. I don't really see too much of, I don't want to say educated, it sounds like I'm being an ass, but there's not a reason you shouldn't, other than our club wants to stay man-powered, which is perfectly fine. Our club here in Alabama, they will all, I guarantee you, they'll always be man-powered. We do give exceptions if, you've got an injury or something, physical impairment. But like, for instance, Tennessee, the way their clubs work together, all their clubs are a part of, I'm trying to remember what they call it. I think they call it CAST, KAST. And all the clubs vote on rules and everything. That way everybody shares rules across the clubs because all those clubs compete in a state at the end of the year. And they all voted motors in, which probably 90% of the people in that state are pissed about. So I want to hear what y'all have to say about it. We might not even have to sit on this one too quick. This one gets talked about all the time, but I figured we'd talk about it again. So whichever one of y'all wants to go.
Susie, the Queen, Your Highness.
I will admit, when motors were becoming a thing, I was kind of against it at first. Just because.
Then you used one.
No, I have never used a motor. I don't plan to, just because of cost and other things, stuff like that. I might change my mind later on if I actually use one or whatever, but just for my mentality of things too. I'm just like, I don't want a motor on a kayak. It's just not my thing, But when I first, saw people using them and everything, and the money people were shelling out for some of these, the torpedoes and the batteries and the wiring and all that other stuff, I was just like, well, for one, they got to deal with putting all that on there and then taking it all off, at the beginning and the end of the tournament. So, that could potentially put them at a little bit of a disadvantage, as far as time management. But then again, their time management is going to be awesome on the water because they have the motor to get them to and from. But what it really comes down to is not necessarily the physical tools. Yeah, they can help an angler excel. But, it comes down to, straight up luck, straight up skill, and just being in the right place at the right time. You can put two top anglers in the nation right next to each other, and have them both fish without motors. They'd probably do just fine. And then have them fish with motors and probably just do fine as well. But again, it comes down to, the skill and, luck. Because, motors are going to help you to a certain extent, but what's really catching the fish at the end of the day?
Right. So something I would say, just because you hit a few of the points. So I was against it at first. Then I used one, and, again, it's efficient. But, so, trying to think of a way to wrap around this. I don't mind running a motor on my tournament fishing setup. A big argument is well, you're not kayaking anymore. Well, if I'm going to compete for money, I'm going to use whatever I can to my advantage. Even though it doesn't give you an advantage, but maybe in my mind, I have an advantage of being able to keep my hands on my gear and fish more than paddle. Which honestly, with my setup, that's not true. You still hand steer mine, so you're never completely hands free. But at the other end of it, I still have a paddle kayak. I'm a Crete guy at heart. I like the pureness of the kayak fishing for fun fishing and adventure, not during a tournament. It is cool. Anytime you can go out in a tournament in skinny water and paddle and, whack them, it is a really good feeling. You can go with no electronics, no battery packs, minimal gear, and do good. But I don't know. It's just a balance. You may do this, you may do that. It's all the same goal, and that's just my look at it. But I don't ever go into it thinking if I pull up to the ramp on tournament day, like at Lake Fork, pulled up to the ramp. I was the only motor at the ramp. I never was like, I got these guys. Because I had a motor, and I was 100% right. That dude smoked me to my spot with pedals. It doesn't matter. I don't know. Go ahead, Armando. This argument gets me so fired up because I think it's just stupid.
I think it's like there's levels to this, and I feel so underprepared after listening to Susie give this explanation, but I'm going to try my best. There's levels, right? When it comes to are you a better fisherman? My argument, this was posted on a group chat, at a group page. Does it make you better? I'll say this: Russ Snyder with a Bass Pro kayak, an Ascent paddle will still beat you most of the time. You put Russ Snyder with a Hobie or whatever you want with a spot lock and everything, that Russ Snyder is gonna always win. Just because you have that now other element where you can be more flexible and move faster and target some spots that are gonna help you catch those fish. You still need the skills, and that's why I use an example. For example, like a Russ Snyder. I may have a spot lock. I ain't beating Russ Snyder 9 times out of 10. I'll tell you that with him on a Pelican. I can tell you that much. I'm not.
There's a bunch of art.
Yeah, there's a talent and a skill that goes with it.
However, there's a bunch of our anglers that could. Yeah. I said it. I can't remember if it was in person or on a podcast that I would like to see a random 10 of pro boat fishermen and the 10 well-known names in our industry. Them in their kayaks, them in their boats, same body of water. I'd like to see how that ended. And that goes to what Armando is saying.
Yeah.
It's skill. And then make them swap. See how it goes.
Then you look at what your co-host has done, Drew Gregory, who's found the antidote for that, and that is targeting fish where actually a trolling motor is a handicap. If he takes that a trolling motor into the spots he's doing, it's going to make it worse for him to go fishing. So there is that level. Now, me personally, I think, and this is just me from a pure standpoint, right? And that word, I think it's overused, but I like to see manpower. I think motors are for boats, kayak is for manpower. Me personally, do I hate motors on a tournament? No, I don't. Do I feel inferior because I see a guy on a motor? No, I don't. I feel inferior if I see if that guy's better, like Drew Gregory, Ross Snyder, and all that. But just because X-Man, has this trolling motor, no, I don't. When that bass tournament Lake Fork that you and I took part of, the top 3, I think none of them had a motor. I know the top 2 didn't. I'm not sure about the third one, but the top 2 did not have a motor, and they won. Mind you, that tournament was all spawning. Pretty much everybody was fishing for spawn, which a motor is a problem because now you're making more noise. Now it's a little bit more complicated to fish with spawning fish. So it all depends on the tournament. There's some body of waters that are going to be more fit to use a motor, and a guy with a motor is going to have an advantage. Doesn't mean he's going to win, but it might have an advantage. And there's certain type of seasons that, like spawning, like a motor is not really going to help you.
Well, and it all, I agree and disagree with that because it all comes down to how you use your motor. I mean, if you're crumbing up in a spawning area and trying to use it to putt around, then you're 100% right. I hardly ever run my motor outside of going from A to B. Get in the water, run across the lake, it goes off and the paddle comes out or the pedals come out. You will never see me because I'm not good staying under the gun. That's equivalent for anybody listening. Maybe it hasn't done a motor on a kayak. It is the same thing if you're one of those guys that gets on a bass boat, turns it on 5 or 10 and just goes. You are more efficient off that trolling motor. Now, there are situations, and MLF is like what I'm watching behind me is a great example of that, where sometimes, in the heat of the tournament, if you know what the scores are, it's okay, it's time to run and gun, and that's how you clear spots. But for me, I can't just stay on the motor because I'm not going to break an area down. I'd rather come in, get quiet. I mean, I'll turn I'll follow my graph as I'm coming in. If I'm fishing shallow, I turn it off because they'd make a noise. They ping. You can hear it. If you buy a brand new system before you put it on a boat or your kayak, if you put the transducer in a bucket of water, you can hear it go. and it'll actually be going tap 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 because it's pinging there and back. But they make noise, so then you get into the argument of how much is really affecting the fishing and how much you just complaining. Because, people would be like, well, motors are bad in shallow water, but graphs are great. Well, no, you're wrong. If you're saying they're loud, so is this. I mean, you're loud. You drop something on your boat, that's loud. It's all relative.
Beans, having said that, I like, and sorry to interrupt, I like that Hobie has said, at least one of the major tournaments is staying manpower. I like that. Having said that, I don't have a motor. The minute that Hobie says we're going motor, I'm getting a spot lock. Because me next year and moving forward, what I like to do is do more of the Hobie events. That's what I would like to target more. So I don't feel the need to buy a motor because what am I going to buy it for? I'm fishing the Hobie events. Unless in practice. Now, if Hobie says we're going motors, then I'm going to say, you know what? I am going to buy motors. So that's why I'm not like hating on it, because at the end of the day, I don't want to have to swallow my own words and say, you know what? I take that back. I'm okay with tournaments having boats. I mean having motors. Me personally, I see it as kayak sport, kayak fishing. It should be a manpower. But again, I'm not against it. I'm not campaigning against it. The day that Hobie says you have, that they're allowing motors, I'll buy a motor and fish with it.
See, that's for me and Brian. We talked about that, a few days ago. That's why next year we'll probably just fish Bassmaster. Like, I have a fully set up kayak for just a motor. It is a beast to paddle if it comes to that. I mean, it's 40 inches wide. It's a monster. It paddles, but it's a lot of work. So since I bought that boat and it is fully set up to be motored, that's what that boat will do. And I will go fish Bassmaster events because that's what that boat's for. I have a man-powered kayak, but what we'll get into in a minute with the way Hobie's rules work, you already see how it limits and makes it a lot harder for guys like me and Drew that fish that skinny stuff, so while their rules play more to an offshore, it's not even true. They just don't play to the back creek guys that get way away. As long as their rules are like that, I probably won't fish their tournaments just for that. It's nothing against them. I would not argue at all. From everyone I know, some of my very, very close friends that are big players in the fishing part of this kayak fishing industry, they all tell you, everybody knows Hobie runs the best event.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't fish their tournaments because I don't like anything or they do something wrong. It's not catered to me at all. Do I want them to change it? Sure. Would I probably fish one anyway? I probably will, just to say I've done it. Who knows? I may end up liking it. It may change how I fish, make me put another piece of knowledge or, a different way of approaching things. But for where I'm at now, what I'm comfortable with, I don't mind fishing Bassmaster and throwing a motor on. And I don't mind fishing local because local allows all these old school rules of portaging and getting way up in the creeks. And that's where I sit my manpower set at, But I don't hate any of it. It's just, I hate the argument more than I care which way anybody goes. I think 100% Hobie should always stay manpower. Why? Because it's Hobie. Like, that's what they're known for, is phenomenal pedal systems, phenomenal boats that are man-powered. Well, get out on the coast, they're wind-powered, but that's totally different. Throw a big old sail on that bad boy. I still want to do that. I really do want to do that. I want to sail a Hobie just to say I've done it. Because I didn't know what that little hole in the front was for.
For the
They're like, oh, that's the sail mat. That's the mast pole for the sail. And I was like, what? Like, oh, I got a new goal now. But anyway, so going off of that with motors, y'all good on that? Anything else you want to add with motors?
Quick shout out to Chris Morales from here in Texas, because he kind of did a great compromise with the TKC Texas Kayak Championship. He allows motors. He allows trolling if you don't have a motor, and I think that's good because it kind of evens out the thing. I mean, it kind of evens it out. The guys that pedal are saying, okay, you can troll if you want, but if you have a motor, it's a give and take, and I think that's big on Chris Morales, Jacob Anderson, Joseph Morales, and that's the end of my rant.
Anything else from motors, Susie?
Just like personally, again, I was first against it in the beginning, but like, as I've, gotten into the kayak fishing industry and everything, like I get it and everything. The day I get a motor is the day I am, the most confident in my knowledge and skills, and where I know that motor will be able to utilize my knowledge and skills to the fullest potential, in a tournament setting. But right now, like I just like there's so many things that I'm, still like clueless about. And I'm just like, the last thing I want to worry about in a tournament is, figuring out my motor if there's like an issue with it or something like that. I mean, yeah, that might be, it might seem like a little thing, but like, to me,
No, it's a bit. I mean, Drew ran into that at that last tournament. His melted.
Right. Yeah. So it's just like, it's less of a worry. It's not a cost, for me to worry about either, and it's just like, when I get to that level of, where the, some of our higher elite anglers are, then yeah, maybe I'll get a motor. But right now it's just like, I'm not at that level yet.
One last thing I'll input on it is I also think that you may start to see it sway more towards them as companies like Newport are coming around and offering that premium style, like brushless system for lower prices. Mm-hmm. I argue with people all the time that you don't have to spend a lot of money to run a motor. I mean, Brian had like $100 in his setup minus the battery. You take any old trolling motor, put a little effort into it, or don't, just put a big old handle on it. Strap it to the back of the boat.
Yeah,
I know guys that strap them to blocks of wood. Like, you can get on the water with any old trolling motor, folks. Mm-hmm. Like,
I've seen it.
Yeah,
Brian had like a 1979 30 thrust. I had my brand new fancy EPS system. His boat was still faster than mine. Like, it doesn't matter. But some people do, like, look at from the outside in. When you show up somewhere, they will. They show up in their Bass Pro Shop rig, and you see a guy that's got 10 G's dropped in a Hobie. It can be intimidating. Mm-hmm. It doesn't intimidate me. They're better than me. It's like, but even if he's crap, he's probably gonna, stumble onto something. Like, maybe because he's pedaling and I'm paddling a yacht. But anyway, so going off to that, we'll stay on the technology thing. What is y'all's take on advanced electronics as far as graphs go? Like LiveScope, it's LiveScope, Panoptix.
HDS Live, Panoptix,
I feel like HDS Live shouldn't even be in this argument because having played with them, it's not in the ballpark in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's cool, but it's not the other two. And like, I'll go ahead and say this. I don't think Hummingbird's 360 vision is at all in that argument.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not live. It's not live like LiveScope, Panoptix. It's cool, but it's not. But what are y'all's thoughts on that? Susie's like straightening herself up in the chair. She's like,
I was gonna say something, but I'm like, no, I don't want to say.
She's winding it up.
She's like winding up that pitch. Like, here we go.
It's almost kind of along like the whole motor argument. In a sense. I mean, it does come down to price because I mean, what does like a LiveScope cost? Like,
I know just the unit, not the head unit, mm-hmm. just the transducer setup and everything. I think the last time I priced it was like $1,500
for just that, and
and you have to have a compatible unit, which I think most of the Garmin units are.
Yeah,
now.
Most of the Garmin's are.
Yeah,
but now it's setting it up too on your kayak.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's all of that to deal with. Okay. So for one, if you're, and it can vary between, what level of competing you're at. Grassroots, local stuff, it's going to be harder for some people to afford some of that stuff. They might be just getting into it, or maybe they're rich ass people who are just having some fun with some local kids. Who knows? I mean, it could be anything, but the price point at first, I think, is going to be, kind of like, holy crap, I can't get into this, and I was kind of that way too when I first got into it because, I see everybody with all these fish finders and I'm like, there's a speck on the screen. Does that mean it's a fish? Type of thing.
I'm still there.
Yeah.
That little thing will pop up and it'll show an emblem of a fish. And I'm like, nah.
Right? I'm just
You're wrong.
No, that can't. No, what? No, yeah. I'm still like, I got a new unit this year and it blows my mind how like ridiculous this thing is. And I'm like, I haven't even touched like the tip of the iceberg with this thing. But anyway,
and what unit are you running, just for reference?
I've got a Lowrance HDS something
thing.
Yeah.
So you have the HDS Live?
Yes. Yeah, HDS Live. Yeah. So like, I honestly, I still look at the screen and I'm like, that's cool. So yeah. Anyway, it comes down to, the skill of the angler. Yeah. You may come up to a fish, you may be able to determine the silhouette of that fish or the shape of that fish, what exactly it is. Maybe not, it depends on how your settings are and all that other stuff. The other thing is like, you got to get that fish to bite too. So yeah, you may be able to see it clear and see exactly where it's at. But again, are you going to be able to catch that fish? What if it just ain't doing anything? Well, you got to work and find other fish to catch, so my opinion with, the fish finders and stuff like that, I sure, I don't care. Again, it comes down to, your knowledge and your skills and everything. And just, yeah, it might be able to give you an edge on the water. Maybe not. It just depends on skill.
It definitely breaks down to if you can utilize that piece of equipment, because I used to argue the same argument you have. Well, it's not catching them for you. It's just finding them.
Right.
But after seeing one used crappie fishing, you can literally just be like, oh, no, they don't like that bait.
Yeah, I was about to touch on
They
that.
still didn't move. Yeah, go ahead and get into that, Armando.
No, and that's the thing. People say it's not going to make you better fisherman. Yes, it will. Let's start by saying that. It will once you learn how to use it. Now, giving you my experience, I bought an Ascent kayak. Then I got it, and I kind of figured out I know how to fish without a fish finder. I got a fish finder, and I forgot how to fish. I was in a struggle because now I'm focusing on this piece of electronic that I spend money on and trying to figure out how I can combine it. And with it, I lost my fishing skills. And things like that keep moving. Once you add stuff, especially when you're learning how to kayak fish, at the first, it's going to be a handicap because now you're focused on learning this instead of learning how to fish. Once you learn how to complement your skill with this tool, it will definitely make you a better fisherman. Why? Because like you touched on it, now when you don't have a fish finder with a live scope, you know the fish there, but you're not sure if you got them there. You're not sure how they're reacting to your bait. So you might spend couple of more casts trying to figure it out. Where in a live scope, you see your bait going down. You see the fish reaction to it. It took one cast to figure out they ain't biting on that. So guess what? We're going to switch it over. Second cast. Did I get it on the nose? Yes, I did. Or no, I didn't. That means I got to cast further. Because now you know exactly where they are versus like, I think they're here. I see something, but I don't even know if it's a carp or a crappie or whatever it is. So once you learn how to implement that, it will make you a better fisherman. How that relates to tournament is, I've heard the comment of like, they should ban this. You really can't go down that rabbit hole. Because where do you stop? Where is it where you cut the line and says, this is where the line is going to cut, and from this point on,
how are you going to regulate
we're
it?
not going to allow this. What's the cutoff? You're going down the rabbit hole where you're going to piss off everybody. Like there's no middle ground on it. Either you allow it or you don't.
There's a lot of that in tournament directing anyway. Any rule that you implement is going to make someone happy and piss someone off. You will not ever please the masses.
Yep.
You can
That's
literally implement every rule that every individual angler wants, and it will piss off every individual angler somehow.
That's true, but this is more of like, what's the judgment call on it? Like, it's
Oh,
easy
no,
to
no,
say.
I agree with you.
There's
You
gonna
can't
be a
ban
lot
it.
of people that says, why are you banning hawk trough? Now I have to invest. I'm not happy. I was happy in my hawk trough. Yes, we get it. But there's an integrity part of it, and everybody can agree that it's a lot easier to manipulate a hawk trough than it is a catch board. So
They also break really easily.
exactly. So there's the point. Is like, yes, we understand, but we know there's a clear cut line that defines the integrity of the sport. When it comes to electronic, it really doesn't affect the integrity of the sport. So really, it's a very blurred line when you're gonna say, are we gonna allow it? Are we not gonna allow it? In my opinion, at this point in the technology. Now, if the technology takes a leap forward in the next 5 years, where it's like, okay, this is not even fishing anymore. This is just ridiculous. Then that, we'll re-examine that point of view. But at this point in time, I don't think there's any way that you can say, yeah, there's no line to cut. It's too blurry to me to say this is where we stop with this.
Yeah, I don't think you can go. Maybe like you got a new trail series coming in or something like that. You could set that rule from the get go. That way, there's nothing really to. I mean, this is our rules. This is what we're going to be doing from now on. Maybe if it's a clear drawn line from the beginning. But it's something like I don't think a club that's been long standing could like notice that, hey, if we had 4 guys win this year and they were all using live scope, we'll just ban them next year. You know how bad that's going to look?
Yeah.
Like, it's going to look so bad. Like, it's like, oh, you're just taking away the advantage from them. But it's,
right.
Again, this is another one of those things that it's not really a big deal to me, but some people, I just see too many people go out and just completely whack everybody's tail with nothing for me to think it gives you a competitive edge. Like you said, Armando, though, in the future, will this technology get to a point where, like Drew's talked about it, well, maybe they'll end up having to be if we ever see kayak fishing get to like an elite level and there's like a pro circuit with like 50 names on it, where those guys are so good and all of them, like, if 70% of them are using live scope, we'll probably want to at least have one. Even, you may not even have to video game fish, but it's a great piece of equipment and tool to have if you know how to use it for backup if your stuff's not working, But I don't think it's there now. I think I think a lot of people get more of that shell shocked from seeing someone use it, knowing that they can't afford that unit, But again, going back to Texas, me and my buddy were fishing right next to a guy with live scope, and we caught way more fish than he did. I never saw him reel a fish in.
Yeah,
and it's a thing. You and Miner touched on it. I'm sorry to interrupt, Susie, but you and Miner just touched on it on a video today. He said for a promotion from Dugout Bait and Tackle, he says, this has become essential to me. This is the kid that's very likely or sit at the pole position to win the Hobie BOS as the Angler of the Year, which we all know is the most kind of coveted and the hardest Angler of the Year to win anywhere. So, and this is a young kid who's 20 years old. This is not Ross Snyder with decades of experience. This is not Drew Gregory. This is a young kid coming up, and I'm not discrediting his talent. His talent speaks for himself. I'm not discrediting it, but you can tell when he says himself, this is essential for me to fish in the Hobie BOS. Then it goes to show you, once you learn how to use it, then yeah, it is going to give you the upper hand, and it might make an angler that's just seating right below the cusp of the elite, just give him that nudge that you say, okay, now we can say he's in the elite now, kind of thing. He may not be the best angler, but it bumps him up. It's going to bump your talent once you learn how to implement it.
For sure. Anything else on electronics? Is there any other electronics I'm not thinking of? I think that's it.
There's like what's the camera thing that you can stick down?
Oh yeah.
That I've seen some people use.
The AquaView? Is that what they call it?
AquaView or something like that?
Aqua something.
Yeah.
I don't know
like,
enough
that
about
only
that one to
shows
have
you
an
so
argument.
much. Yeah, I mean, you're very limited with that. So, unless
Well, they've got the some of the boat guys use that thing they put on their transducer that emits a noise or a frequency or something like that. That's a fish attractant. I've seen that. I can't remember what that's called.
That to me
But
crosses the line, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I
100%.
don't even know.
You might as well just tie.
I'm just like,
Yeah,
You might as well
that
just
to me
tie a bunch of dead bait on the bottom of your kayak and go. It's like I'm not catching them with it, but I'm getting them close. I hope nobody cheats that way because I feel like I just started that because that was totally a joke.
Well, I heard this on Jimmy Skinner. He
Hey,
said,
Paddle and Fin podcast said if you tie a bunch of shad to the bottom of your boat, it's not cheating. No, I'm gonna go ahead and call it you're cheating. Cheating. Sticking with cheating, we will go straight from here into.
you see Susie rubbing his hand. She's like,
She's ready.
I'm
So
ready.
Get
we'll
him
kind
now.
of combine a few things into it. Armando already kind of touched on it about hog trough versus catch board and that being requirements in two of the actually I think it's all three of the national
all
events
three
now.
of them.
Mhm.
Yeah, they all went catch.
Hobie went medal only. So
There's a reason. We're not getting into that.
Yep, there is a big reason.
really,
But we'll
We're not gonna go into super fine.
I don't feel
details,
like
but-
bringing up all that crap and getting
Yeah.
it all stirred up again.
It's a dead horse at this point, but yeah.
Right. But boards and we'll kind of say judging, the big one is always hands, and I won't even get into mouth open rule because that's not really something to talk about. That's just all up on who's judging the tournament to be able to tell the difference between a fish's mouth open and a fish with a bubble lip.
But however, that is actually a debate that we could.
She's not
get
waiting for
into,
her turn
though,
today.
Because I mean,
Oh, I don't care. I told her before we started, just cut me off, go for it.
right?
I knew
So-
Susie had a lot to talk about when she was the first person that responded when I said, "Does anybody want to talk about rules?" She's like, "I'm so
went
in." I was like,
So, like,
if she's the only
definitely.
person that does it, this will be a good episode. So,
Right.
all right. Well,
So yeah, we'll start with the mouth rule and what that everything that pertains to it. All right. So there's open mouth rule.
should I got a
and
beer for this?
There's rules as far as if it's a 1/4 inch or less open, if it's a 1/4 inch or more open, if it's deformed, etc., etc., etc. The challenging parts of that rule as a director, depending on which tournament series you're judging for or what rules the league has in place, how do you properly and fairly determine what is a 1/4 inch or more? How do you determine that it is a jacked up mouth and just maybe the fish has no bottom lip at all? Do you judge that as just a thing, or do you completely deny it? There are a lot of gray areas to this rule sometimes.
It's
That's
definitely situational, but there
frustrating.
has to be a standard.
Yes, there definitely has to be a standard. Now,
I personally think that the 1/4 inch thing should be
Mhm.
gone. It's
I
either
think
open
so
or it
too.
ain't. And then
exactly.
the you're putting trust in someone to judge a tournament, so their word is final.
Yep.
So if you say any kind of mouth open that is not a deformity, whether you're taking inches off or kicking it, then it's up to the person that has been entrusted to judge the tournament. Whatever they say goes at that point.
Discretion, yes, of the judge at the time.
And
Yes.
you're, as a tournament president, club director, whatever, whoever's judging, you are putting your trust in them, knowing they know what the hell. Like, they would know, okay, this fish came in with no bottom lip. That's not his fault.
Right. And it's obvious too.
But they should also be able to tell the difference of a fish, like jawline out,
or
open. Like, it's very. I haven't had one yet, and I've judged a lot that I've actually been like, is it deformed or is it open? Like, most of the time, you don't just look here. You can
Right.
look down their jaw crease, and you can tell.
you can tell. Yes.
Sorry to cut you off, but
No, it's good. It's good discussion. But yes, I full-heartedly agree. I don't like the whole in between, like, okay, if it's this much or less open, then it's only this amount deducted. No. Who's to say that it's that much open? Are you going to stick like a little rule in there? Is that to scale? There's a whole big debate with that.
don't say that too loud. They're already making everybody do video releases. Ooh, we could get into that.
Oh,
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I would like to get into that one.
Yes.
But you say it too loud, they'll start sending everybody a little half-inch measure and stick. They gotta like stick in the fish's mouth, or stick behind the fish, or some bullshit. Sorry.
As a TD, I like rules that are in black and white. There is no gray area. There is no question about it. If that mouth is closed, there is not going to be a deduction. If that mouth is open in any way, shape, or form, you are automatically getting this deduction. Boom. End of story.
Does Adam even try to argue with you anymore? Your husband? Does he?
Shit, no.
Does he know automatically that he lost? Like
It depends. It depends.
he
on the
could be
topic.
saying, Susie can be saying the Earth is flat. He could say no, it's round, but he's not gonna win. He's not gonna win.
That's why he doesn't even bother.
No, I think I agree with Susie.
Trophy husband.
I think you can't start making like, well, if it's this, you penalize, and you penalize for people for not following the rules. And I think, Susie, you said that once in a podcast. Help me help you. As a tournament angler, as a tournament director, help me help you. I'm here to judge. Please do my job as easy as possible. If the mouse is closed, it's open, even if it's just a millimeter, I can't judge that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to penalize you for not following the rule. And whether it's to me personally, it should be at least half an inch penalty. Going it more than 1 inch, I think it's taking it too long. The reason why I wouldn't disqualify a fish, because you really discounting, people work hard to get their fish, So to completely erase the hard work that they did, and just say, well, we don't count that, when we're talking about mouth closed, we're not talking about other things. We're just talking about mouth closed. I feel that's taking it too far, and I've seen tournament anglers do that. Tournament directors do that. So, well, I'm gonna disqualify it. That's too harsh because that guy or girl worked their butt off for that cat. Anybody that's done fishing knows it takes a lot to catch a fish. So don't automatically disqualify it. Penalize it if the mouth is open even 1 millimeter because it's supposed to be closed.
So do you think that this is a rule that should be standardized across every single tournament?
I mean, local clubs, it's all dependent. But
I don't think you can make rules standard for local level, but I think that it should be standard. We should have a big set standard for all the bigger stuff.
But no, what I'm saying is just like, we know these people work hard and everything, but when you are competing at these elite level of tournaments where, you get like the TOC, you are held to the highest standard as an angler. You should know these rules front and back. You should know what deductions you get or what disqualifications you get if you don't have everything set in place the way it should be in that photo submission. So, I mean, it may seem like it's harsh, but at the same time, this is why this is a tournament.
It keeps you humble.
And that's what I'm saying. Penalize him, but don't disqualify the fish.
Okay,
you don't disqualify the fish. Penalize him. I would say that's a little harsh, but I would say, hey, regardless if it's open a little bit, it's gonna be. I mean, the hardest I would go was be an inch. We'll deduct an inch, and that's
Jimmy,
a lot.
You said you've got the rules open for some of them.
But
does anybody?
While
any
Jimmy
of the
touches
big
on,
three,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do any of the big three disqualify a photo for having an open mouth in any way, shape, or form?
Y'all talk and I'll look because I have it on something else.
While he does that, Susie, giving you props, you shared a post from the KBN on the group chat talking about what will it take to take it to the next level. Now, this is kind of hard because now there are big corporations, not big corporations, but big organizations like Bassmaster involved in kayak fishing. And you got MLF. They got the money. So, and they know it. So they're going to each one's going to pull to their side. I would like to see every major sport has that. were a federation and a body, a governing body that makes up the rules and said this is what the rules are. If you want to be an official kayak fishing league, you have to abide by those rules. Basketball has it with FIBA, although the NBA kind of trumps it because of their, the money that they bring. But soccer has the same thing. They all have a governing body that says these are the rules. I would like to see that when it comes to tournaments. If you're going to sanction the tournament, you're going to say this is an official kayak fishing tournament. I would like to see a governing body make those rules and say these are the rules for when it comes to, especially when it comes to hand placements and open and closed mouth. I'll give you an example while Jimmy's still, and Jimmy, whenever you get the information and you want to cut in, let me know.
Well, y'all keep going. I found one which is interesting, and I'm working on the next two.
So here in Texas, there's a bunch of bluegrass tournament. Now, a few of them are run by Chris Morales, Duke Trent, which I know, they kind of talk and kind of work together. But still, there's a bunch. You got Southeast Texas, Northeast Texas, Central Texas, West Texas. And a lot of time, Cats, which is kind of like their own thing with ACK. And then you have to remember, okay, what are the rules for you fishing a tournament? You forget which one you're on. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. Can I place my hand here? Can I not? I've taken to the point where I was like, as much as I can, I'm not even touching the fish. I've gone to the point where I don't touch the fish.
Yeah.
Now, there's times, especially on summer, when that sun is bright and hot, that you have no option but to put your hand on it to calm it down. But that's the thing about it. The governing body would go a long way to say, hey, you know what? These are the rules. And then you don't have to kind of figure out, wait a minute, which tournament am I fishing?
Right.
Which rules apply to this?
And that's, kind of like how there is somewhat of standards when it comes to rules. KBF was kind of like the start of, kayak fishing rule standard. And a lot of clubs and agencies have, adopted those and made their modifications. But still, there are a lot of different modifications, which I can understand to a certain extent. Some of them want to allow trolling. Some of them don't want to allow trolling. Some of them want to allow more than one line in the water because they have, a different species that they're going for. There are, some different stipulations and everything. However, when it comes to these types of things, when it comes to mouth being open, mouth being closed, touching the tail, pinching the tail, that type of thing.
Ouch.
I cannot emphasize how I wish there was a golden standard straight across the board for everything that you just could not change.
Yeah.
Well, here, we'll go from that. So I'll start with this. I'll save my interesting take on one of them for last. So we'll start with the Bassmaster series. Based off their photo criteria, the mouth of the bass must be closed completely. And the penalty for a open mouth is a 1-inch deduction. It does not say quarter-inch leeway. Basically, what I would take from that as an angler, which I take from this because I fish with them, if it's cracked, 1-inch deduction.
Yep, I agree.
If it's open in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I agree.
Okay.
So, KBF. The bass's lip or jaw must be in contact with a measuring board or fence. Violation is denial of photo. In the bass fishing competition, a closed mouth is preferred for uniformity of measurement. If judge considers the mouth to be open a quarter of an inch or more, even if it is structurally unable to close, a 1-inch penalty will be assessed. So that right there says a bubble lip still gets you a
right.
So that was a little different.
So that,
but again, 1-inch penalty.
Wording on this,
but
that's
it's saying if your mouth is open a quarter inch or less, you're not getting any deduction.
Right.
And here lies the problem. And let me interrupt real quick. Here lies the problem. Now you're going down the deep rabbit hole. Look at what Bassmaster is doing. It's open, 1/2 inch. Now you're cornering yourself as KBF into being open for interpretation and being open to criticism. Because now you're saying, well, if it's this and if it's that, you're giving too much explanation. It's open or it's closed. Simple as that. Keep it white, black or white. It's open.
There's a
or it's
giant
closed.
word here
It's
that needs to
open,
be taken out completely.
Yeah.
Is closed mouth is preferred. No,
That's
closed mouth is
Right.
required.
So
Who wrote those
yeah,
rules?
it says preferred. So yeah, there's a big gaping discrepancy as a TD and a judge. Like, why would you have that word in
That
there?
is-
Is
Preferred is
preferred?
not go in rules anyway.
No.
I don't exactly. I don't like to create
It's like
division.
saying we
I don't
prefer
like,
you
but
to wear
this
your
is
PFD.
that is
You
the
know?
stupidest thing I've ever heard on a rule.
So
That's
now this
stupid.
is the one that, honest to God, out of these two, I don't like that last one that we just read. Like you said, too much room, too much.
Yep.
Too much.
And too much interpretation. It's not black and white.
So there's not too much room for interpretation, but there's room in a different way on this one. So this one's Hobie. So I forgot to scroll back up to their photo criteria. The mouth of the bass must be closed completely, same as Bassmaster. I like reading that. Okay. What I don't like is the penalties. Mouth cracked or slightly open, 1/2 inch deduction. Mouth blatantly open, 1 to 2 inch deduction.
What
The hell
what
is
was
the
that?
judge of that?
What is what?
Mouth blatantly open,
If it's
1
blatantly
inch.
open, so like if it's just
You put that
sitting
bitch on the
board
thing like this.
and it's wide open,
You can get a
judge-
1 inch to a 2 inch deduction. What's the?
I
how do you
agree.
properly and fairly judge that?
Yeah,
I
that's a
have- the
20. I'm
problem
taking
that I
off
have-
2. It's an 18. I'll take off 1.
The problem that I have with that rule is the part where it says 1 to 2. It's either 1
Pick
or 1
one.
2. Like
Yeah.
I know, like there's times where the fish is just not gonna close his mouth. It's just there are times where it's like, God, I gotta get him to close his mouth completely. Okay, you take the 1/2 inch deduction, you say that's fine. You know, let's move on. Let's keep fishing because I'm wasting too much time here. When it's blatantly open, when you say like, you know, I've had bass that they just for whatever reason the trauma of being hooked cannot, their mouth is shut. I can't even close them with my hands. I'm like this. I'm hurting this fish if I try to close his mouth, and that happened to me a couple of times. What I do is I put him on the net, get him on the water a little bit, let him kind of like get the trauma out of it, and put him back in. But anyways, that's another. But yes, I agree with saying, hey, if it's crack open, we'll deduct 1 inch or 1/2 inch. If it's blatantly open, yes, we're gonna deduct you 1 inch completely or 2 inch. But
I would do the extreme. If you're not even gonna try, 2 inch.
Yes. But that whole thing, 1 or 2 inches, again, you're setting yourself up for interpretation.
Well, that
and
not only that,
scrutiny by
but
it.
you know, you could also, you know, as Fabian is, you know, somebody who's well,
How is he?
somebody. No, well, but this is also an interesting and a good thing in a way, though, is because they have people out there who are like hawks watching these tournaments. You know, they're watching the photo submissions and
Shout
they're
out to Clifton Allen.
criticizing everything. You know, which is good because you know what.
Yes.
Hey, you know, we're making sure that whoever's judging these big tournaments is
It's on their toes.
being held to the highest level that they can be, which is how it should be. You know, me, myself, as a judge, you know, I hold myself to a high level. It's just like, I don't care who you are. I don't care who's taking that picture. It could be Jody Queen. It could be Christine Fisher. It could be Katie. It could be anybody, you know, Dusty Yacker. I don't care who's judging that. If you have a perfect picture, your mouth is closed, I can see everything clear as day, I'm going to judge that fish super easy. You know, but if you got a mouth open and everything, I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, you know, that's like, you know, Russ Snyder's. I better go easy on him. No, that's not how you judge fish.
What I wish is for Tourney X, and this would be for all sorts of other reasons other than just the mouth open thing. I wish from the, and that'd be hard to do, on the director side of Tourney X, I wish all the submissions would come in with no names.
Like
Like-
That really complicates. I agree with you, but it kind
Right,
of
and like I said, it would be hard. But when you go to score submissions or whatever,
Angler X, Angler A, Angler B.
doesn't say angler or anything.
Yeah.
If you got 160 pictures of fish, there's 160 pictures of fish. You go through and then it does its auto calling. That way there is no chance of anybody being biased about anything. everything gets now again, that can be loose. People know each other's boats.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
crap.
can tell a lady's hand sometimes,
But
or feet.
oh god,
We're going down.
Some people have some nasty feet.
check out our
let me tell you.
OnlyFans, folks.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was a good one.
But
For
oh yeah,
those
I mean,
guys-
it would never happen, but I think it would be because it would take a different, because you have to be able to contact the angler, and then obviously you can go back and you can see their best fish, so you'd be like, yep. But still,
Well, yeah,
it'd be
but
loose, and that's where you're relying on the honesty of your
right. But
judge.
yeah, but the biggest con I see from that too is, as a judge and a director, especially for my local tournaments, if somebody has submitted a fish and it's like blurry because sometimes Tournix will downgrade the pixelation and everything, like I'm going to reach out to them and be like, hey, send me that photo of that fish to me via messenger so I can get a better look of it, because like it's looking weird or whatever. And so
I'll do that, but I've gotten harsh on everything else for the most part.
right,
Like
yeah.
I go through it so detailed in the live captain meeting that you're supposed to watch. That come tournament day, I'm ruthless. Mouth open, screw you. Mouth open, screw you.
Right.
This will be a segue into the next topic.
Yes.
Hand in the gill plate. Go, Susie. Hand placement in tournaments. Tell me what you hate. Tell me what you love. What should be the standard?
Here we go. Hold up.
yeah.
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Okay, there, and you've got all three rules up again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I want you to tell me what the rules are for each of them for either touching the tail or pinching the tail.
All right, y'all talk. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Well, real quickly, I wanted to touch on this because we were talking about in the pre-show. Cat's tournament took a little bit of grief. And going back to what you were saying, those keyboard heroes, shout out to Clifton Allen, people's champion in Texas. Some people love him. I won one of them. Some people don't appreciate the calling out, but he does keep everybody honest. And he brought up a great subject. And I had talked to that angler that was, from that post that came up in the KBN. It was the Cats tournament. The gentleman that was fishing is 7 foot tall. His hand is probably the size of most people's personal best. And he got disqualified because on 3 of the fish, because his thumb was not covering, but touching, grazing the anal fin. That sounds kind of dirtier than it is. But he got disqualified. Here's my thing. The rules for hand placement are for 2 things. First of all, the integrity of the sport, honesty of the sport, integrity of the sport, and the protection for the bass. The whole thing, the gill plate, not touching the gill plate, not on the hand, fingers not underneath the gill plate. That's to protect the fish. I am completely on call for that. Not touching the tail, of course, because we see it in the past, cut tails and all that. Don't touch the tail. When you start getting into, like, again, setting yourself up for scrutiny, don't touch the anal fin, don't touch this. Keep it simple. Put your hand, if you need to put your hand, put it between where you're not touching the gill plate and you're not touching the base of the tail, where we can see the difference where the tail and the rest of the body starts. That's it. Don't start saying anal fin. Don't start putting, because you're setting yourself up for scrutiny. Just keep it simple.
It's not that hard.
This is also a rule, though, that I think is always going to have some gray area to it, because you can go down the rabbit hole with this one, because your 7 foot friend has a 24-inch widespread on his hand. He just caught a 12-inch fish, and that sucker will not stay on the board for anything. So yeah, his hand is literally going to be covering all of that fish. So, who's to say that a tournament league might not come up with the idea of saying, oh no, you can only have like 2 fingers on the fish or something ridiculous like that, because I could totally see it happening. Mainly because
Stop talking like that, Susie.
Hey, this is the way that we have to think sometimes.
No, it is.
Because of how people have been cheating. People have been drawing on fish. People have been cutting fish's tails. People have been slicing the tails. So, we.
Who draws on the fish, though?
No, trust me. People have done this. People have taken a Sharpie to change the markings so that they look different. People have
a little mustache.
And well,
that is literally what I was like. I'm gonna draw a handlebar mustache on a fish.
But
is that Jimmy Skinner or is that a bass? What is that beer on?
So, but this is why there will be a gray area. Okay. Yeah. So recently, though, a guy had been catching fish. He's got a big hand spread. He'd be covering most of the fish, so you can't really see a lot of markings to distinguish if another fish of the same size was caught and submitted. So what this guy was doing is he would catch a fish, take multiple pictures of it with his hand covering nearly the entire fish. Then what he would do is take pictures with his hand off of it, or just kind of, different on there so you could see the markings, but then he would scrape the tail to make it look like it was a different tail.
That one.
Yeah. Oh, that's just wrong.
Yeah, but this is the length of cheating that people have went to. So how do you make a rule that is going to be consistent that covers that? How can you say in a rule you can't cover up like 10% of the fish? Well, if you catch a 12-inch fish, the most chances are your hand's going to be more than what that fish is, and it won't stay on the board. So how the hell are you supposed to get it picture perfect if it's flopping all over the place?
Well,
I'll hop in.
Go ahead.
I'll hop in with what our local club does. Is they do, because of all the crap we're talking about, they do mouth open, no hands.
Okay.
You see the whole fish. No worried about getting the mouth shut. That they don't look at it from the cheating aspect as much as they do about no stress on the fish. It's in, it's out.
But the problem with that is now you're putting the fish's health at risk. And my point of this is now, because when the mouth is open, there's a reason why they penalize you, because the mouth is open. Because when the mouth is open, that fish is all of a sudden not 20 inches, might be 21 inches, might be 20 and a half inches. So now you're going to have guys trying to force their mouth open. Now you're going to have guys that are saying, okay, I'm not going to put the hand on it, but the fish won't stop moving. So guess what? I'm going to wait till this fish comes down. By the time this fish comes down, it may be too late to put him back on the water. Which gets to probably a good segue to go to the whole video release and stuff. But that's the thing about it. It's like there's got to be a balance with protecting the fish and the integrity of the sport. And that's what I think the balance is. My opinion is, and we can go back to what the whole thing with Ron Champion is, not calling Ron Champion out. I'm not trying to get into beef or anything, but we know what happened. And my thought when that happened is, and I was talking to one of the tournament anglers, I can't remember if it was you, Jimmy, or who it was, but I thought, how is it that there wasn't a rule on Hobie BOS? Because the excuse was, well, there wasn't a rule. To me, there should be at least one rule that should say any manipulation, physical manipulation of the fish to make it look bigger than its natural size, automatic disqualification. That covers a whole lot of things. And people say, well, that's that interpretation. And to me, it's not. And this is where I go by this. If you're putting, manipulating the fish in the sense that cutting the tail or making it, or I've seen guys that just white knuckle it to squeeze that fish into being squished up into being bigger.
With smallies, sometimes you have to white knuckle them to hold them on the board, because the moment you let go, they're gone.
But I've had fish, especially on summer when they're really active. You don't have to white knuckle. You can just put your hand on it, press a little bit on it, and let and wait a few minutes to come down. That's one thing I rarely, people ask me, why do you have a net if you're lipping them all the time? I don't really, unless it's a really huge fish a treble hook, I really don't use the net. The net to me is like, this fish is not coming down, I'm going to put him in the water. Their jaws locked open. I'm gonna put in the water, get him relaxed, then put him back on the board. That's basically why I bring the net more than anything. So there's not a perfect rule that's gonna apply to everything.
shit.
What my suggestion is like keep it simple. Keep it simple. Hand somewhere between the plate and the tail. Don't touch the plate. Don't touch the base of the tail. Let us see where the tail starts and the body starts. Let us see the gill plate completely, and that's it.
So,
in my opinion,
because I've got it all pulled up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with KBF because KBF's rules are what I would wish would be an industry standard. And that's me personally. So, hand position. In bass competition, again, a lot of words. Hand or fingers may be in contact with the caudal peduncle, fleshy scaled part of the bass's body at the base of the caudal fin. It's the middle of the damn fish, but not covering or touching any portion of the caudal tail fin. Violation will result in a 1-inch deduction. Then they go in and have a picture, which I should have set up the screen share here.
Like I can bring that up here.
But I can give you a breakdown of what it is. So it's basically like what Armando just said. Fish facing left, mouth closed. The hand is in between the tail fin and the gill plate without touching anything else. And the rules are broken down this way. Deny the fish if the front of the mouth is covered. Deny the fish if the eye is covered. Deny if any portion of the hand is under the gill flap, which I 100% agree with. The last one is there's a 1-inch penalty if the tail fin is touched or covered by the hand or fingers, which would include pinching. So that's, there you go.
Yeah, so the picture up here,
For our folks on YouTube, this is, I was just reading it off of. A very, very well put out.
Yes.
Very basic. And I think it gives you enough room. Like, you can say what you want about somebody's size of their hand and holding the fish down. Now, your guy in Texas, that I completely understand. But if it's coming into question about multiple fish because of not being able to identify things, one, you don't know how to look at anything other than the, what does they call that? The line, I can't remember.
God, what the heck is that called?
The lateral line.
Lateral line, yeah.
So I know a lot of guys I talk to that judge tournaments talk about that. Well, I'm like, there's so much more of that fish you can look at. Like fin shape, gill plate shape, jawline shape. So, and at the same time, not every fish is struggling to get off the board. I can go back right now because I keep all the pictures of all the fish I submit in tournaments. Mm-hmm. I probably only have my hand on maybe same 5 here. Of them. Yeah, like if you go back, that fish, I put the board at an angle.
Yep.
Make the weight of the fish hold the mouth closed, and I move my hands. That way there's no, like a guy taught me a trick with the tail to dodge the pinching thing. I will take the fish. If the fish is laying, it'd be this way. So his tail's at the end it's supposed to be. I'll pick the tail up and let it do this. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, and they'll relax their tail and fan it. And then I just take my fingers and I run across its back and its bottom, and it'll shape the tail in. And then I don't have to touch it. Like, it always, because the fish is wet, when you shape it, it stays. I mean, unless they get moving, but they don't always do that. Smallmouth, totally different. Smallmouth, they should allow cam straps for big smallmouth.
Yes,
I should be able to just, because I've had smallmouth jump up and fin me. You know, I've literally been hit in the mouth, and the taste on top of him slapping me and getting in the water was, I'd have loved to found him. I don't eat bass. I'd have ate his ass. I would have fried him and enjoyed him. But so that was KBF. So we'll go into.
And that was a good one. The only thing I would change about that, again, being too extensive with that. Well, if it's touching the tail, we'll deduct. No, don't touch the tail. Point and simple.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. That is black and white. Yeah, you don't touch it.
Going back.
Well, especially with the other 3 rules that are on that picture, say deny, deny, deny.
Mm-hmm.
So deny the 4th one, like.
Yep.
All right,
going
so
back real quickly before you say that, and that's what I like to talk about when the whole thing, and again going back to what the whole round champion thing that happened again. Not picking on him, but like there should be just a rule that says, because when we go to talk about hawk troughs, it's like, well, they put the magic marker. You're manipulating the board now. Put a rule that says, don't have to put a rule that says you're bending the board. Don't put a rule that says you're making the lines larger. Put a rule that says if you're manipulating the board, that it looks beyond what the manufacturer intended, that's disqualified. That's it. That you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, be careful.
That
with
it covers
though.
bending it. That covers making the lines bigger. That covers whatever other manipulation. Same thing with the fish. Are you manipulating the fish in any way physically to make it look bigger than they are? That talks about cutting the tail. That talks about having the mouth open. That's another thing. But put that rule in there so you can go back to that and say, did you manipulate the board in any way? You did, then you're disqualified. Whether it's that you bend it, whether it's that you made that line a little bit bigger, that's it. You
You
manipulated.
got to be careful
You're
with
out.
that rule, though, because interpretation, manipulating that board, that means moving that board in any way, shape, or form to adjust that fish. So people could interpret that as tipping the board as manipulating the board.
Well, tipping the board actually is less productive. Like I do what Jimmy does. I know a lot of anglers don't want to do that because now you may be losing that quarter, that
Right,
line,
but that
because
is
you're
still-
manipulating the board into the
Right, but
that's
if
not
you
a
want to be
competitive advantage.
consistent, if you want to be consistent with your ruling and your
Susie,
judging,
I 100% agree with you, Armando, but Susie's 100% right with it. It's the word manipulation in itself is open for interpretation.
yes.
Well, manipulating physically. That's what I meant. Manipulating physically. Like you're making it see the manufacturer built it this way and you're using it in a way that it's not meant to be using. That includes bending it. That includes engraving or painting over the lines. That's what I mean manipulation. Now, to me, I do the same thing. I actually learned that from Jimmy, where I learned it at that Bass Nation tournament. Jimmy taught me, so like just let it rest on the lip, and that'll get not guaranteed, but keep the
right,
the
but
mouth
just
open.
thinking in context of how people think and interpret things. That's why I'm a judge and a TD for a lot of things because I think of
you're
these
right.
things.
I default to
You
that on
gotta
that,
think
but
of,
go on ahead.
So-
Jimmy. You had some other rules.
On the Hobie, theirs is tail must be laying flat on the board, and pinching the tail is permitted. And then where's Bass? Bass is same rules as the fish on the board, but not permitted pinching the tail. So theirs would fall in line with KBF's. It's not mouth open. I mean, yes, the mouth is supposed to be closed. We've already went over the deduction setup system there. But as far as hand placement and everything, Bass is in line with KBF with the no pinching. I don't see. I'm trying to see if there is a.
Does it say anything like if you're touching the tail?
There does not.
Well, the problem now how we're pinching is when you pinch, now you may be inadvertently covering the base of the tail. So that's why I think I don't think you should be touching it. It's now you try to pinch it. Now I can't see where the tail starts and the body, where the tail ends and the body starts, and that could be like, well,
I'll say this:
people can go ahead and cut the fish. And
most of the time, if you're pinching a tail and you're using a cut tail, it's going to be pretty damn obvious.
I can't believe it didn't take the guy that was doing it as long to get caught as it did.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say this before we move off of these scoring and penalty rules, and a lot of it's coming back to cheating.
Mm-hmm.
If you're worried about cheating that much as a tournament director, you have all of these rules have it where they clarify that you will be submitted, that you could be submitted to a polygraph test. If you're that worried about it, pay for that test.
However, polygraphs are not 100% accurate.
They're not, but 9 out of 10 people wouldn't know how to easily handle a polygraph test. So, I think we've hit that pretty thoroughly. Yeah, we'll hit video release. So, now I don't have anything pulled up on this, but KBF, for anyone that's listening that doesn't know or watching that doesn't know, at the national championship this year, KBF implemented a new rule where the fish had to be videoed. It was a video submission. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Requested. Yeah, it could be requested.
It could be requested.
That I like. Yeah.
So, which would mean that you might as well do it for all of them, because if you get it requested for the one that you don't have, then you lose it. But basically, on top of taking your picture that you would submit to Fishing Chaos with all the rules we just talked about, you have to do a video release showing the fish coming off the board, the fish in the water, the fish swimming away, and then going back to the blank board. They had a lot of help promoting it. A lot of the anglers did some really good videos on it. And I honestly did not hear a lot of people complain about it. It is one more step at first that kind of irked me. Is like, well, shit, I've already got so much other stuff I'm trying to do. But, with KBF's had something happen, not cheating, but just something happen in a lot of their events. With the national championship the year before, with all the Tourney X issues, I feel like they were just covering their ass on this and making sure that there's other things that people wouldn't think about. This is a way to make sure that two anglers fishing together aren't submitting the same fish.
Exactly.
Which I've always wondered about, because I've always wondered it from a local standpoint. I do not think that these guys that I'm friends with do this. It's just looking at it from the outside in, I'm like, man, I wonder what would be said if someone called them on that. How would you prove that that's not the case? I mean, yeah, you go back to the pictures and look, but this is just another way.
Too,
which that GPS data is loose.
It is very loose, and it depends on what towers they're feeding off of and how good of a signal they have as well too.
Yeah, this is very standard, like Google Map, like non-satellite image stuff. It is not like
state of the art,
high-end Google Earth's like instant satellite imagery. Like I'll have a buddy fishing a tournament that I'm scoring. This dude, if he cheated, would tell on himself. Like, and it'll show, I'll know where he's at, and it'll show him like 3 miles up on the bank. And like, I know for a fact that's not where he's at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's just, that's how it works sometimes. That we'll get into the boundary thing I want to talk about here in a little bit, but go ahead.
I think that the video release thing, it should be like, take the video. If you land in the money or in the top 10 or in the top 5, we're going to ask you to show us the video. I like that idea. Not everybody, because I think that's overkill. If somebody caught 2 fish and it's not, come on, you're going to make him ask for video release on that. But if we're talking about, hey, you got in the money, you're actually making money out of this, let's see the video release real quickly, and we'll watch. I wanted to touch on something because you and I fished the bass tournament. I don't know if this happened to you and where you were fishing, Jimmy, but I was fishing in an area. And this is where the video release comes in handy. Very rarely would an angler, not very rarely, but it's not common for 2 anglers to catch the same fish, except when we're talking about spawning. Because those fish are there on their beds. You could have left that spot. Now an angler comes up. He could be very well catching the same fish. That fish could be caught 4 or 5 times from tournament anglers. I went to an area where there's some guys, I don't know their names. I am not saying they were cheating, because firstly, I don't think anyone won anything, just like I didn't. So I'm not putting them down either by saying that. But they were from the same area. They were not from Texas, and they were fishing in an area. I got to talk to them, and then I started thinking, man, they're hitting all these spots the same area on spawning season. Who's to say they're not sharing the fish? Now, I'm not accusing them of it, but it's like, oh man, they were clearly fishing as a team. I'm not saying they were sharing their fish, but they were sharing the spots and sharing knowledge. So it's kind of like NASCAR. They're racing as a team now to make one of them win. Well, these guys over here were fishing as a team. It's not against the rules, so I'm not accusing them of cheating, but there is that thing where it's like, it's spawning season. The same guy, that guy could be catching a fish. Hey, I just caught one. It's right there. Oh, cool. The next guy with, his homie's going to come up, hit that same spot, knowing exactly what to throw to catch that fish. It's not illegal, but that's where the video release comes in. Because now you can say, hey, you know what? I did release the fish. Jimmy and I were fishing on a tournament, Bassmasters, Hobie, whatever. And we happened to fish the same area. And we happen to, be killing it on a tournament. Now they say, oh, that's the paddle and fin guys. Oh, I saw the paddle and fins guys together. Oh, I wonder, you know what? Let's do the video release. And then we can leave the scrutiny out. We can say, you know what? Here's the fish. Here's released. There was no cheating involved. That's
Yeah,
why I like that rule.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it. I don't see it being something that would take off
Yeah.
outside of the 3 major trails because I don't see a need for it. I mean, maybe championships at the end of the year or something where there's some real money, or big clubs like Queen City. I mean, even NACA. I mean, we'll have 90 guys show up. Sometimes you get some good money good.
Michigan Kayak Trail,
Which,
too.
yeah, which leads me to something I hope that everybody does is judge, as a judge, anybody that's judging a tournament ever that listens to this, you judge every fish that comes in exactly the same way, no matter if that guy has a chance or not. Because if you let him slide on something, then you could have let someone else slide on something else.
Yep.
That being said, you should also, when you're doing a tournament, the guys that get into the prize money or qualification range, all of their stuff should be thoroughly looked at again before award ceremonies.
Second review. Yep.
And even if you have someone else review it, get a fresh set of eyes on it. You know, a lot of big tournaments have 2 guys looking at stuff. And I'm sure, I would like to think that they do that, and I'm sure they do. I mean, when they're paying out thousands and thousands of dollars, you want to have it right. But you and I, we've all heard, not necessarily from KBF, Bass, or Hobie, but a tournament where it ends and then there's that picture that pops up or that telltale that comes up. Oh, he was in illegal water. Like, you can cut all of that out by really getting thorough with it again before you. I mean, like I said, you want to be doing this during the tournament, but definitely before you pay out or announce results, so that there's no. I think it was KBF last year had one at the national championship, because at the end of it the standings were one way and then they all flopped because
top 5, not
there was
other
other
like late
things.
submissions or
Yeah.
something like
There
that.
was other things going on with the national championship last year too, but
Easy with the juice.
what was I just gonna say? I lost my
Video fishing.
I could see it becoming a standard for like some of the bigger leagues, like, you know, Hobie, Bass, I mean KBF, for like your big events, and then slowly kind of trickling to, you know, the Elite Trail Series and to other events. I mean, it could become a standard, you know, just depending upon, you know, the success of it, you know. It's, you know, the biggest complaints, you know, I heard from anglers about it was, well, what about my battery life on my phone? Well, just like take a charger with you, like a power bank. You know, people came up with, you know, these excuses, and it was just like, these aren't really validating excuses, guys. Like, there's a reason this rule is being implemented. It's to protect the integrity of the sport, the integrity of the anglers, and just everything all around. So it's just like, you know, you guys complain about not having, you know, good rules or all these loopholes, but then like you have this rule that established. And again, it's like Jimmy said, you can't please all the masses. But, you know, I think the biggest thing though is having the reinforcement and the explanation of, you know, the rule changes and explanations when they happen and as they do happen. Because, you know, I think it's very much needed and justified as things change and evolve, you know, throughout the years. You know, whereas, you know, the measuring boards, yes, we've had to change and evolve because of situations, you know, and it's for the better, really, you know.
And it's a good thing.
It is, yeah, it is a good
going.
thing, you know. And like, you know, not covering the eye or all these other things, it's just like, well, yeah, duh, you know. It again, people just need to like really stop and like put yourselves in a judge or TD position for like 5 minutes and just,
Well, see, they don't want to do that because
I know,
that's
yeah.
not, it's,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, you hit all that right on the head. Well, I mean, I would just be repeating what you said, but you did a great job right there. So taking all of Oh, here's one more we can hit before we hit the one I want to talk about.
I got a couple other little tidbit
Do
ones
you
too.
now?
Yes, I've had
Well,
a
Susie,
list.
Susie,
I'm crossing
tidbit
them
away.
off as we go along.
Because
I have to get up at 5:30, Susie. So
hey, you're here.
Yeah.
All right, pre-fishing.
Yes, pre-fishing.
Limitations or no limitations? Off limits periods, no off limits periods.
okay, while she manifests. Okay, go
This
ahead. Are you ready?
one, like, I really honestly don't know how to answer. Just because, like, you know, I've seen things play out for top anglers who will spend a week pre-fishing here and there only to do really bad, or pre-fish for an hour and then just, smoke everybody. Does it really give somebody an advantage? Maybe they might learn some of the water, a little bit easier. But, like, again, it comes down to the talent of the angler, how they're utilizing their time and resources and knowledge on the water, and luck. I mean, yeah, again, somebody could be pre-fishing for like 3 days. They've had the perfect weather. Storm front comes through, changes everything. Or maybe it rained like 6 inches and everything's flooded out. What are you going to do? It just, I think, it could just be whatever. I mean, yeah, it should turn off like, the night before at like, 5 or 6 p.m. so that, nobody's out on the water or anything like that. But like before that, who cares?
Armando?
I like what TKC doing. Again, shout out to Chris Morales, Jacob Anderson, and Joseph Andrews. No, I'm sorry. I missed the last name stuff. But anyways, 2 days of pre-fishing, that's it. A week before the tournament, I think 7 or 10 days before the tournament, water was off limit. The only thing I have, the only thing about that is like, how are you really going to police it? That's
well, yeah,
the only thing. That's what I don't like. That's the only thing I don't like. But assuming everybody follows the rule, which is not 100% accurate, I like that. 2 days of pre-fishing, and that's it. I like to see it on bigger tournaments. Again, it's hard to police.
What do you mean by 2 days? Like you choose 2 days?
You got the tournament is Saturday. You can pre-fish it Thursday. You can pre-fish it Friday. That's it. You only get 2 days.
So you can only pre-fish for the.
So it's an official practice period.
Official practice period.
No, you can't even touch. So this, if I'm not mistaken, the Sunday after, and Chris, if you're listening, send me a message when you hear this podcast and tell me, or Jacob or Joseph, if I'm wrong. But I think it's like, if that's from that Sunday, the Sunday before the tournament, you cannot fish that lake until, you cannot even fish it. You can't even get on the water without, they say it on the rules. You cannot even be on the water. You cannot even be on the water, point blank. People be like, well, I'm just using my graph. I don't have my rods. Don't care. You can't be on the water. You can only be on the water within that 7-day period, Thursday and Friday before the tournament. That's it. I personally like that idea. I think it levels the playing field out. Obviously, the only issue I have is how are we really going to police it? Are you going to have somebody at the lake making sure nobody does that?
Right.
The same thing with, and I know Bass is very strict on it. I've seen rules like you cannot talk to other people. I'm like, I get the rule, and I wish
I
guarantee
you every one of us has broke that damn rule.
Yeah, who's going to police it? Are you really going to talk? Am I really going to be talking to Jimmy? So you've been fishing all this time? Really? Don't tell me anything because we're breaking the rules. Come on, man. Like,
I want to say the way Bass's rule on that is that you can't talk, you can't get intel inside of the official practice hours from anyone that is not in the competition. Okay.
Right, so like a guide or...
Folks love coming up and talking to kayak guys at the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to talk. Sometimes they're like, hey, go check that third tree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay.
That's
like,
the problem with that rule.
Exactly.
Somebody comes in and volunteers information, and let's say you and I at the boat, like let's say you and I are not buddies, right? We're at the boat ramp, and I hear a boat guy telling you, "Hey Jimmy, hit that." I'm like, "Hey, Dwayne, Jimmy's had a conversation." He's like, and they ask you, he's like, "Yeah, did you have this conversation?" Well, what are you supposed to do? Like, you didn't ask for the information. This information is given to you. You have conversations. So that rule, I think it's like, I like it, but I think it's overstretching.
Oh,
the
yeah.
fact
It's
don't
stupid.
put I don't believe you should put a rule that you cannot police.
Don't fish with a
I
guide.
think it's just unnecessary because, like, who's to say, yeah, you know, you have a guide showing you the ins and outs of this lake, telling you what to throw, showing you what to throw, etc., etc. Tournament day, you catch nothing. Whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Or you're fishing the guide's spot and he rolls up and kicks your ass.
Exactly. Yeah. Or maybe, you know, you got insider information on a spot and tournament day, you show up and there's 10 other anglers there.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So,
turns out it wasn't as secret as you thought it was.
Exactly. And that
yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. It's putting you in an awkward position where it's like you can't really enforce the rule, but somebody says, "Hey, so and so had a conversation with this guy and it's not fishing a tournament. So what are you gonna do about it?" Well, like,
who gives a shit?
What the
We're
conversation?
human beings.
Jesus.
I will 100%. When we fished Bassmaster on the Coosa, when I found out when that was happening, we were like 3 months out. I messaged Dustin Connell. He's the Coosa King. He responded, "Go here, go here, go here." Now, again, that was way before that tournament. Checked those spots. I didn't catch crap. You know, some people got it, some people don't.
It is
and then tournament day,
rule.
it stormed like hell. It wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
But I do like the whole pre-fishing 2 days only. That
So go. What?
See, I don't think a pre-fishing limitation just needs to be set in place. Again, it comes down to skill utilization of the tools you have and everything else. Because, yeah, you may be pre-fishing this spot and you're like, yeah, I've had really good luck here. I'm just crushing it. Nobody else has been here. Tournament day, 10 other anglers are at the same spot you were just pre-fishing at. So what are you gonna do? You know?
And I agree to your point. The best 2 tournaments that I've done, and I came second behind Mark Pendergraph. I didn't pre-fish it. All my pre-fishing was done on a desktop, Google Earth. Another tournament that I thought I did pretty well, if it wasn't for a few missed hook sets, and I probably would have landed in the money, was the Belton Lake. And I've never been down that lake. That was all waypointing the crap out of Google Earth and uploading to my Garmin. And I found 5 fish. Unfortunately, my talents did not match the information that I had on hand at that moment. And I think like 3 misfished on hook sets. So that was on me. But to that point, is I didn't need to pre-fish. And those are the best 2 tournaments that I've done. That I feel like I've done. It's because I did the research without having been on the water. I'm not saying there's no value in pre-fishing.
Right.
There obviously is.
But here's another thing, too, that could happen. Let's say you have a friend or family member that lives on the lake that the tournament's happening at, and they fish that lake every single day, and they give you information of it when it's during the non-pre-fishing time. Hey, that's still just as fair as anything else.
So my take on the whole pre-fishing thing is, do I think an angler should be getting to put like 2 or 3 weeks of time on it? Absolutely not. But they have to learn how to manage those fish anyway. Yeah. You have to learn the patterns, manage the fish so you don't burn them up, and then you still have to catch them on a tournament with changing wedded patterns.
What if it's their home lake?
Exactly. Right. There's so many loose ends to it. Now, something I would like to see is leave everything open through the year, but come tournament time, shut that lake off for a month before and give them the week before or 2 days like Armando's saying, because at the TOC, you're the top of your game anyway. You fought to get there. It's the toughest thing to get into right now on our level of kayak fishing. Tough shit. Here's a curveball. You don't get to touch the body of water. It's all about the research. Now you got 48 hours to figure it out. I feel like it levels the playing field. Mm-hmm. Just for one event.
Just no pre-fishing at all. Like the TOC, I think it would be even more of a challenge to add to that. No pre-fishing that whole week.
Right. What I would love to see that we can't do is what MLF used to do, which they may still do they got series all over the place now. When I first started watching MLF, they'd put all these guys in trucks. They'd know what state they were in. They had no idea where they were going. They'd pull up to the lake. They'd get to run around the lake for an hour. Now they have boats. They can do that. We can't. And for kayak anglers, it's just totally different. We can't just drop a boat and run, So, but we could, like you said, cut off the pre-fishing. This is the Tournament of Champions. This is where we're fishing. You are not allowed to touch this water.
The elite of the
You can drive around and look at it. Get out and check, like Drew does, point your little laser, see what the water temp is. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Right.
See what you can see, but do not touch that water. And then tournament starts on Friday and ends on Sunday. Everyone's even. That gives. I feel like that's going to show you who the real.
For those higher
prepared.
level ones, yes.
There's levels.
For the smaller local ones,
Oh no, just leave it
but
open.
for like these big elite
everybody's
ones,
local.
I'll
bet you anything. I could put 20 straight days on Gunnersville, and I will still lose that event. 100%.
Right.
And there's another level to this that we don't talk about, is the growth of the sport. The growth of the sport is going to be in large part, when we're going to apply to the masses, of that moment of somebody catching big fish and putting up big numbers. Now, if you start putting all these rules to kind of keeping it out, you kind of also playing down the competition, where you have to remember we're trying to grow. So it's a balance. I'm not saying Jimmy's wrong. I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying there is a conversation where when we have this conversation, we have to look at how it's going to affect the growth of the sport, not just the integrity, but
that's
the
why
growth of the sport. Yeah,
that's why you point it towards the elite level, because the elite level is what needs to. It has to be different to narrow down the competition.
Yes.
Everybody shouldn't be able to go fish.
Yep.
At these events, like the KBFNC. I agree with the KBFNC being easy to get into because it is a avenue for other anglers to fish a major finisher event that may not have the skill or the time to put in to make like the Tournament of Champions or the Bassmaster Classic. But growth of the sport, what all these guys that are aspiring to do this for a living want, is that separation to an elite level. These are the kind of rules that will have to be in place. So, does it look bad to certain people from the outside looking in that may want to get into it? It does. But so does me paying $10,000 entry fee in a bass boat tournament. Yep. That's why I don't do it. That's why those guys do it. They're built different. Like, exactly. Elite, average guy. Mm-hmm. So,
but yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's the point. That there's going to be the people that participate, and there's going to be the viewers, right? The end game for kayak bass fishing is, can we televise it? Can we can we market in a way where now it's not just entry fees that's bringing in the money? It's actually people tuning in, and the technology has changed. Cable TV, I called it about 5 years ago. Cable TV is going to stop existing at some point. It's all going to be live streaming. So we wonder what technology is going to bring forward, and how is that going to affect the promotion of a sport. We see it in the music industry a lot now. So the what's going to bring in the money, the end game, is being able to televise it. So there's people that not necessarily going to fish, because there's a lot of people that don't fish on boats, but they still get up in the morning and watch a boat tournament. Just like almost nobody fishes races on NASCAR, but a lot of people go watch it or tune in Sunday morning to watch NASCAR and Formula One and all that. So what we would like is for kayak fishing may not be that big, but to be marketable in that sense. And that the way to market that is having those big moments like Guillermo Gonzalez beating Jody Quinn 17 minutes ago by 110 to 109 inches. Mark Pendergraft, what he did on the Bassmaster with Joel McElroy. What was the other tournament that just happened that had an awesome... what was just happening, the KBF National Championship. Guillermo Gonzalez putting 3 days in a row of 100. Like that hype extended to more than kayak fishing. So there's that balance where you don't want to limit the growth of the sport by handicapping it too much. You want to make it where you can have that big numbers that's gonna bring those people to at least watch it and be marketable. And that's a big part of this. I think that's something that needs to take place in this conversation and find that balance.
Yeah, there is. And, media is going to be our outlet, but the steps that need to happen to get that media.
Oh, yeah.
Is, what's, the thing that's kind of keeping us right now. Oh, yeah, I think he's taking a break right now.
They left us unchaperoned, Susie.
Oh, I know, right?
Did you really like Jimmy? I don't really. Not kidding. He's a great guy.
Yeah. But, I'm curious about, some other rules down in Texas because I had an interesting conversation with Katie Baca when I was at the women's event. We were talking about, weather concerns and whether or not to cancel a tournament and, mandatory check-ins and stuff like that, And she brought up some very interesting, topics. And, in Texas, they hold a tournament whether or not there's a severe thunderstorm that blows in, and I'm just like, really?
We do too.
Right. And that blew my mind because
not everyone. Not everyone, because I know Chris Morales on TKC were belted. There was going to be there was expected thunderstorms. So Chris Morales was updating everyone. We might have a lines out, or earlier we might. So some of the Chris Morales, for example, shout out to them. There were some decisions that were taken on the fly. So I don't think all of them are like that.
Yeah, I know, which is a very curious topic for me because having experienced some rather scary, life and death situations out on the water, should there be a point to where, if an angler does get hurt or drowns because a tournament decided to have the tournament, regardless of the weather conditions, who is held liable?
That's what waivers are for.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
However,
we're talking about a life, though. I think that's what Susie's trying to touch. I mean, here in Texas, we have rolling thunderstorms. We have a saying in Texas: if you don't like the weather, come back in 2 minutes or come back in 2 hours.
Stick around, it'll change.
Especially on transition season. Like summer, it's always going to be hot. Winter, it's for the most part going to be in the 40s. Spring, a fall in Texas. It's a crapshoot. You can have on fall you can either have winter or you can have summer or you can have fall or you can have spring. On spring, same thing. Anything goes on spring. Those are to me are a big and I've had it. I've been on the water where I'm looking at my weather app and it says 5 miles per hour wind and I'm like, the hell it is. I'm about to tip over with this white caps. What are you talking about? In the middle of the lake because I'm looking at the weather app and it's saying, oh, great, sunny, 5 mile per hour winds. And I'm like, no, I'm about to die here.
Right, yeah, because,
and it's just they roll so fast.
Yeah, and she also stated, though, she's like, hey, everybody is an adult here. They can make adult decisions. I'm like, yes, to an extent they can, yes. However, there's other circumstances, I mean, you got rolling storms come in and you just say, hey, be on the lookout, if somebody's not paying attention, which falls on them. But anybody could be put into a dangerous situation, whether they try not to be in that situation or not. But, it's just a matter of, at the end of the day, if a family or a loved one wanted to sue somebody because they're...
Well, you could find a lawyer that'd win that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, what gamble...
But what happens if you sue a kayak
Not
club?
only that,
You ain't
even
getting
with your
nothing.
conscience of, No, but even with your conscience as a tournament director that I made a decision or I failed to make a decision and it cost somebody's life.
And an angler
I wouldn't want that
died.
on my head. Yeah.
Because, yes, I don't want that on me. But,
No.
it just, it was very kind of, unsettling to me. I was just like, you would risk the life of anglers.
No.
To hold a tournament, with, really crappy conditions. Yeah, I know, your areas or whatever, storms come and go within an hour or two. Illinois, sometimes it happens, but most of the time, if you've got lightning and stuff coming in, it's going to be around for a couple of hours. You're like, yeah, no, we're going to cancel this shit. Because I'll tell you right now, when it comes to lightning, I'm not risking anybody's life.
Ooh, especially when you got
lightning is the only thing that bothers me.
Well, and
wind.
See,
High
wind, I would not Now, like, let's say that you have a day where they're projecting like
Sustained.
sustained 30s and up.
30
Okay,
plus? Oh, yeah,
that
canceling.
I would consider it. If
Yeah.
you know you're going to have a bad lightning situation, I'd consider it. Around here, with our thunderstorms, I mean, and even when there's not thunderstorms, you're going to have really windy days. You're going to have choppy conditions. You're going to have storms roll in. You're going to have heavy rain. You're going to get some lightning. What we used to do, and this is very low tech, is they would just send out like a lightning delay on Facebook, because back before Attorney X.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, maybe not everybody's in service to get that.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, what if they're not in service?
That's where it would be cool to have, have a rule in place where everybody has to download the same weather app. Because, like, my weather apps work whether I'm in service or not. Like, I get lightning notifications. I have a map called My Radar.
Yes,
that
I love
I have
that app.
That's the one I use.
Yes, I love
that
that app.
that app, you can go through and set all the layers
Yes.
for everything and anything. You could, maybe it could be in the future of Attorney X where there is an automated message. We're having a lightning delay off the water, or just whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see where you would come from on the other end about delaying a tournament, but I'm just a good old country boy that doesn't care. Like,
Yeah.
from the fishing standpoint, I've fished in a tornado before. Not like literally in it, but I've been in a bass boat on the river. Tornado sirens going off. We slid into a boat dock. Storm passed. We slid right back out of it and kept going.
Right.
Stupid? Absolutely. But we did it anyway.
Right.
So we are an hour and 45 into this, and I've still got a really good topic to get into. And
Let's do it.
Do we want to make a part 2, or we just want to keep going?
well, that's what we may do. I may just keep recording unless Armando needs to go, and I may just cut it in 2 pieces. I don't know yet.
I don't know. I do have to get up early, but what do you have? It's up to you, man. It's your
So, all right, we'll just hit this real quick and we'll get off. All right, so boundaries and the rules of portaging, which this gets back into the biggest topic that's been hit here and there lately, is the water accessing rules, and which goes to boundary, and it affects different kinds of fishermen. So my take on this is I look at it from the director's standpoint, as well as an angler. It looks like most of it. So if you go by KBF allows you to. I've got it pulled up right here. You can launch from any public access. You can not cross restricted properties, obviously, but tributaries, canals, and sloughs, estuaries, or are paddle eligible water, as long as they're not crossed with a man-made barrier, temporary obstructions, fallen trees and log jams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, what it comes down to is, if you are a person that has the argument that you're a purist of kayak fishing, that is your rules. You can get out of your boat. You can drag over certain objects. You can wade up shoals. You can fish the skinnier water. The other part of what I'm talking about with the boundaries is how far is too much. Because as the director side of it, I do see where some of the guys have a legal foot to stand on with it. Big issue we have in our state with one of the clubs is some of their guys can get 20 and 30 miles up some of the creeks. It's still a tributary to that lake, but they're not even in the area of that lake anymore.
Right.
Are they still fishing the same body of water? And then they've had issues of guys. I don't know how true this is, just something I heard, but like going from that tributary, pulling through the woods to like a slack area from like a previous flood, fishing like landlocked fish. Which landlocked? I guess that would be right.
Yeah.
I think so.
But for me, there should be, and this is where I was hoping Drew would get in on this, because with river bassing, they had a formula
That's his jam.
that calculated based off, I think, shoreline miles, how many miles around said body of water you could go up the creeks. Like my argument with Hobie is if they're all manpower, the water should be open a little further for these man-powered skinny water guys, in my opinion. If you're all manpower, and they can't say it's... Somebody told me the other day, they was like, well, they cater their rules to their boats. I've taken a Hobie PA-14. I did it a few months ago when I borrowed one. I was so far up a creek, a kid passed me in ankle-deep water walking. And I was still going. There's no fish there, but it was just like, I'm still moving. Look at me.
Barely,
just because
but
it could
you're
do it.
moving.
It wasn't touching the bottom. So that's not the case. You can take them. The AJ McWhorter told me himself on the phone when I was signing up our guys for their Hobie team from our shop, Music City. He was like, man, try to get some of these guys to take these PAs and run them up creeks because they'll go as far as they want them to. And he is not lying. They'll go. You just got to want to do it.
Yep.
But if there's been some rule, like they've had little add-ons, like when they did the Coosa, they cut off certain areas without any good explanation. What I heard was that they heard it was a private area. Well, do the research and figure that out for yourself. Like, I was told that it was tipped off by a competitor. So, who knows?
Yeah.
I'm not getting into that. I don't. That's not what I'm getting into. It's just with their setup. If you're man powered, make it purist style. Let the skinny water guys get up there, even if you only give them 5 miles. 5 miles.
But they still need to have designated boundaries.
Designated boundaries.
Yes.
I am a creek guy at heart. Anybody around here knows that. It may not show when I'm fishing.
Yep.
Yeah, but you have got to have a cutoff.
Yes, you do.
Whether I agree with like I just said, with what the guys were saying, are they fishing the same water?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
no.
How far is too far? I mean,
right.
Yeah, at that point, like you're not even near that body of water anymore.
There's a thing that stands out in the rules for me that it says accessible from the main body of water, which would be in, like, let's say we're on Pickwick. Mm-hmm. Pickwick's your main body of water. You've got 5,750 million tributaries.
Mm-hmm.
I can take one of those all the way into Tennessee through Alabama.
Right.
Like, not the Tennessee side of the lake, straight through our state. Like, how much is too much just for the fact, because of the rule, accessible from the main body of water.
Right.
Where I take that, if it's accessible from the main body of water,
then
you better put your ass in the main body of water and go up there.
Yep.
So would I say you could take a ramp that's within our 3 miles? Let's say, like, we drew a 3 mile bubble around it. You can put in at a ramp on that creek. As long as you put in there, go as far up as you want. Because you put in and proved that you accessed it from there. But don't drive 30 miles and put in. Because then who the hell knows if there's 40 trees laying on top of each other? Or the waters ran shallow and you would walk 3 miles up rocks before you got to paddleable water.
Yep, exactly.
KBF has always done really good at about, or no, was it Bass? No, I think it was KBF. Like, Drew's got videos on scooching where he'll sit in his kayak and he'll have it floating and he'll just pop it along with the paddles. Yeah. Like, that's fine. Getting out and wading, in my opinion, is fine. I don't see what the big deal is. The way our club does it, you have to have your boat with you. Like, tie that bitch to your belt, and the picture of the fish still has to be in the boat.
Yeah. But yeah. I know.
I don't agree with Bass's rule on... I like I'm okay with Bass's boundaries for the most part so far, but they don't allow you to get out of the kayak at all. So
yeah, that's like,
and it just takes the kayak and part of kayak. And now, again, it's something else. It's all loose ended. Do I think that a guy should be able to paddle up to a 7 foot tall waterfall and drag his boat up it? No. Like, let's get real, guy.
That's not. Yeah.
But that's Bass kind of like doing what we're saying. Keep it simple. Are you drinking Yoo-Hoo? Is that Yoo-Hoo?
Yes, it is.
I have a craving for Yoo-Hoo, man.
My buddy said something.
It's been since I've drank Yoo-Hoo.
A buddy of mine said something when we were playing a video game the other night about drinking a Yoo-Hoo. I went to Sam's Club and bought a case of them.
Damn, that's so good. Anyway,
God, yes.
what I laughed when you started saying that because I was in the captain's meeting I was sitting right next to Chad Hoover for the KBF Trinity River, and there was a very passionate conversation between one of the competitors and Chad Hoover. Anybody knows who Chad Hoover is? At best, you're gonna tie with him, but you're not gonna win that argument. At best, on the lucky day, you might tie the conversation, but you're not gonna win. But it got heated. Now, it didn't get ugly or anything like that. But it was that whole thing was the Trinity River system, which included a bunch of lakes. So now it's even more complicated. And then the Trinity River, which runs to the Trinity Fort Worth, which has a bunch of access where the city has said, puts a sign that says you can launch a kayak from here. But it's not a boat ramp. And it's divided by pools. So I got the angler side of it, and I kind of agree with him. It's like, yeah, where do you draw the boundary when you put in that rule? Because like, it's a no man's. It's a Wild West here when we're talking about the Trinity River. You know, anybody can launch for everything, and there's like makeshift, like official city kayak launching areas, and then there's just people throwing the boat from the water. You know, from the shore, parking and throwing it from the shore. So it's too much of an open interpretation. And I don't know who was right or who was wrong. I think both were right and both are wrong.
Should it be the responsibility of the tournament host to have like preset, definite, clear black and white boundaries? I definitely 100% agree so, because that's what our local clubs do. Like if we're on a river system, you cannot go this far up on this river. You cannot go this far, and you can go up to the first bridge on any of the tributaries. Pure black and white. No room for, oh yeah, can I launch at this ramp that's off the map? No, it's not on there. No.
And to finish the point, I think there's a way to also circumvent through this as a tournament director, and I think Jimmy hit on it. This is the body of water. You launch from when the ramps are. If you can make it 20 miles up and come back and lie down and submit your photos,
hey,
more power to you.
Exactly.
Do it. But you launch from the body of water.
From the body of
and
water.
And there's also different levels to this as a tournament angler. You're negotiating with the city. We're talking about more big tournaments, not local clubs like Bassmaster and all that. You're saying, hey, we're going to bring the tournament. You know, we want from the Chamber of Commerce, we want some help here to alleviate the cost. Okay, well, I want Chamber of Commerce of that city can say, okay, I got a lake that extends to Alabama or Tennessee or my neighboring state. You're going to bring this here. I want people to come here and consume and, you know, kind of like give a boost to our economy in our town, right? The mayor's going to say, then I want your anglers to come to this town to fish. And that's also plays into big tournaments where the tournament director says, hey, you know what? We're getting this deal from the mayor. And the mayor could probably say, okay, you want to host this tournament, but I don't want people fishing all the way on the other side of this lake where people are not even coming into my town. If I'm giving you money to bring your tournament here, I want them to fish here, where they're going to have lunch in our community, where they're going to have where they're going to buy good souvenirs, where they're going to be paying Airbnbs and and give a boost into our local economy. And they have the right to do that. So that plays into those decisions too. And people don't talk about that, but that's part of it too.
And that's something that I know is true from. Now it's a lot like Pickwick would be a good example of why that wouldn't work, is because Pickwick, the dead center of the lake, is sitting almost in between three states. Yeah. So you can't. Some
places you just can't do that.
Right, but you're right with the Chambers of Commerce. One of the Chambers of Commerce for Pickwick, can't remember what county it is south of the lake. They give our local club money to come there every year. What they want in return is they give us deals on hotels. Like, you know, all your guys can stay at the Hampton. Not true. But all your guys can stay at the Hampton for a discounted rate because that's money in for them. With kayak fishing, that's not always the right way to do it because, like he said, there's Airbnbs, Verbo.
Yeah.
There's always people who
camping.
are, looking for a cheaper way, which, I mean, you're not going to be able to get around because, you're going to have the budget conscious anglers and stuff, but at least, you're giving options to everyone.
Yeah. But that's where, to go off what Armando said, something that does help them with that is when they station they're like Counts Tennessee for the Hobie and the bass. Well, we're going to let you use our event center.
Right. Yes.
Well, that makes everyone come to your area.
100%.
That makes people, a lot of people will plan like we stayed where we stayed to stay relevant to the check-in location. Yep. I could have stayed at my house, but it would have been an hour and a half drive just to, it'd have been 45 to the water to where I would have fished if I stayed at my house. And then it'd have been an hour and a half to the check-in. So you plan where you stay off that. So there's a lot to it other than I'm giving you money just to fish here. But the money comes in no matter how. Now, like I said, the Pickwick one could be weird just because it covers so many areas. But like you follow that's coming up covers 2 states.
Yep.
Three states.
Toledo Bend.
Yeah, Toledo Bend. But yeah, there's the biggest thing for me on this is just how much is too much, but give the skinny water guys some room, but at the same time, I see the argument, and Drew is a huge advocate of it. He's a skinny water guy at heart, but he can also go out on the main water and get you too. He would prefer to stay in the shallows. Like the argument was put to me one way here is guys are going so far up the creek to find these unpressured fish that anybody could catch. Okay. You can do it too.
That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do.
And that's where what I would like to do, what we said, is me give you a 5 to 10 mile circle around the lake. You can use any of those ramps, and you can go as far up as you want, but you have to use those ramps. You can't go drop in a bridge and float down. You have to put in where I tell you, in that area. That way it shows the work that I still got to my spot. I still got my unpressured fish. Kiss my ass.
Worked for it.
Exactly. Because the way that guy put it was like they're going and getting that there's no skill in it. Well, no, you think that there's skill in catching heavy pressured fish, which there is. I can't do it. But could you go do what I do? I bet you I'd kick your butt at it every single time. Like this person in particular, it's not your thing. Just like ledge fishing's not my thing on a high pressured lake. There's got to be some for each person. You got to find a set standard and a limitation. And again, it's something just like we've said the whole time. You can't keep everybody happy, and you'll never please everybody. Yep. But everybody should get their own little piece of it. Like it goes. Wrapping up everything we've said, the motors, the graphs, maybe not the rules, like the scoring and stuff, but everybody should get their little bit of the piece of it somewhere, whether it be all of them abide by all the same rules, or I go to Hobie because I want to be man-powered. I go to Bass because I want to use motors and live scope. I want to go KBF because I get to portage. And which I see nothing wrong with that kind of division breakdown.
Yeah. I think it's good.
Because there's no tournament that can say that we are pro elite whatever yet. There's no reason that you can't have that division, because you can go get your fix wherever you need to, however you want. And then when that elite level happens, this is what we're doing. These are the rules. This is set in stone. You have made it here because you're great. Now prove it. I don't know. That's just my closing rant on that. I can keep, and the only reason I don't want to keep going is because we've talked about it on the OG show some recently. Me and Drew have hit it quite a few times just because, some of these rules affect him, and he's trying to make a living doing this. And if he's one of your leading anglers in this, and you pigeonhole him, that doesn't look good on you, And I'm not saying that it's one in particular. I know that it's happened a couple of times this year in different situations with different entities. It makes people look bad when, even if you don't say I'm singling out whatever, just like we said, you can't just go in and take away live scope because guys have been winning with live scope, because then you just look terrible. It's the same thing. If the guy's killing you in the creeks, you can't cut the creeks out.
No.
You're taking the
That's
biggest name of
exclusion.
your sport. You're taking the biggest name on your organization, and you're handicapping. How is that? That's like saying to LeBron James or Leo Messi, who plays
exclusion and
soccer, or
discrimination.
or whoever is, or Fernando Tatis. You're hitting too much home runs. We need to do something for you to stop hitting so much home. Excuse me. That's what people pay. That's
No,
what
your home
pay
runs
for
don't
the
count
home
until they
runs.
break 400 feet.
Yeah. That's what people pay to see. So, and I had somebody on my, and not calling it out, but, and I don't think it's a call out, but anyways, I had somebody on my podcast when we were doing kind of like the spotlight anglers that were going to be in the TOC, and one of them said, I feel more confident winning the TOC and the Angler of the Year, knowing that Drew cannot fish these areas in Eufaula. He said it on the podcast. And I was like, how do you do that? Like, right now, he's your Angler of the Year. He's the biggest ticket. You should be promoting what he's doing. Not saying give him a helping hand. Not saying give him an unfair advantage over everybody else. You shouldn't be handicapping him either. Like, that's the guy that's putting up the big numbers. You're going to handicap him now at the biggest event, the one that's supposed to draw the most attention. I don't get it. I don't see how it's that good promotion for your tournament. Now, you can make the argument, well, we want it to be more people involved. If we do this, Drew Gregory is always going to win. That's on the competition. That's not, you don't make your competition better by handicapping the best angler. You
I mean,
make
if
your
somebody's doing
competition better
something
by getting to the other anglers, you want to win the money? Go beat Drew Gregory. I'm not handicapping him. Be better instead of asking him to not be as good. That's my point.
No, that's something that I hope that you'll see once there's that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think at all if tomorrow MLF came out and was like, we're doing $1,500 entry fees, qualifying only. We're gonna hand pick the top 50 or something like that, and then they's like, but you can only use these boat ramps or these areas. I bet you Drew'd still go do it. I bet you guys I know that fish shallow and man-powered, Russ, Adam, these guys, they'll still go do it. If you're eat up in this and you're going to make a living doing it, you will find a way to beat your competition.
Yep.
You
Definitely.
just dig. So, all right, well, that's enough. This is a long one. We went 2 hours. We may break it up. We may not. I'll text Brian and see what he wants to do. Do have a couple tournaments real quick to go over the scores of. I'll hit those really quick. It's just 3. Oh, the Yoo-hoo's giving me the hiccups. Jesus. All right, so the event that Armando's been talking about, the Cats tournament out in Texas, the championship on Sam Rayburn, 2-day event with 29 anglers, 5 fish limit. First place, Jeremiah Smith, total 167.5. Second place, Aaron Spry, 165.25. Third place, Joseph Sanderson with 160.25. Next up was the Central Carolina Kayak Fishing guys. They were on Sharon Harris. Their event number 2, 33 anglers, 5 fish limit. First place, Jason Hensley with 87.25. Second place, Michael Wiggs, 74 inches. Third place, Joey Sullivan with 72. And last but not least, the 2021 Missouri State Championship on Table Rock Lake, 2-day tournament, 49 anglers, 5 fish limit. First place, Justin Kuhn with 164.5. Second place, Brandon Prince with 158.5. And third place, Mr. Lance Burris with 148.25. A couple more rounded down for the year. That was a good one. I feel like Susie got a lot off of her chest.
Yeah.
I thought I might get into a little bit of heat on this, but it's really not. Like, none of these
We're not
rules.
calling anybody out. No.
I mean, it's not even that. I don't care if somebody thinks I'm calling them out. It's just making a point of what we see, what I might like and what I might not like. But most of it, it's none of this stuff really affects me to that level. It's just things that we notice. Like, I don't. At the end of the day, nothing I've said would stop me from fishing any of these tournaments. Like, if Hobie comes to Gunnersville, I think I've got a fair competitive chance on Gunnersville. I'll suck it up, but I'll still enter that tournament. The only reason I didn't fish the Hobie on Pickwick was the day. do all these tournaments have stuff they could work on? Yes, that's growth.
Mhm.
That's what that is. None of it stops any of us from fishing. And if you look at how these tournaments are stacked every time and the participation numbers, nobody's getting that mad. They still got the numbers. They've all still got 70 plus anglers at all these events, you know.
The biggest things that would stop me from competing in like even local tournaments or stuff like that are when, you know, special exceptions are made for like certain anglers and whatnot, because that actually did happen this year in a club that I heard about, and I was quite frankly pretty disappointed in that situation, and just made me lose a whole lot of disrespect for the folks running that club. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but yeah, what had happened is somebody was running late. It's clearly stated in the rules, you have to check in by this certain time. Like if you're running late because you didn't time manage, you're late and you're disqualified. So they called one of the staff members and said that they were running late, you know, and that made it okay.
No.
I was not okay
Rules
with
are
that.
rules.
I was not okay with that.
Rules are rules are rules, just like
Yep,
the title.
Exactly. Yep. So
No, I love all the stuff that's happening in tournament fishing. I like the growth. I like how there's kind of 3 big things right now. I love seeing all the other local clubs, you know, tons of options. I think everybody's
tons of options.
there's tons of stuff that can be improved across the board, but for the most part, I'm 100% happy with what we have, all the options we have. Just like I said, if you don't like something one's doing, go get your fix with somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Exactly.
That's right.
No one is forcing you to do anything.
Nope.
You are choosing what
And
to do.
I'll close it with this. Go ahead, Armando. I'll close that out.
Real quickly. We all in Paddle and Fin, speaking as Paddle and Fin family, we all promote. We have Jimmy, you have anglers from KBF, from Hobie BOS, from Bassmaster. We may have our preference on which ones we like, and we may say it, this is what the one I want to fish, and this is the one I have. But we are no way saying to anybody, don't fish that one.
Right.
Or,
No.
you know, or we're not saying I'm not even interested in bringing him on or her on the show because he fished X tournament. No. We promote every single tournament, and at the end of the day, what we want is the sport in itself and the community to grow. Whether it's Bassmaster, Hobie BOS, KBF, whichever takes the lead, we all grow if we create unity in this environment.
You know, that just with that being said, none of them are greater. You know, nothing that you can prove any one way or the other. You know, get your fix however you can. I'll say the thing I was going to close with is a big shout out to AJ McWhorter for how you run Hobie. You've done a phenomenal job. Chad Hoover, I will give him all the credit in the world because he's taken a bunch of shit, and KBF still has participation. May not be for everybody. Some people are just too burned on it. It's perfectly understandable. If you get burned too much, you don't want to go back to something. But Chad handles himself. They've made a bunch of big changes. Who knows what we see from KBF now? Like maybe they've taken some time back, settle in. And Bass, you know, John Stewart, Dwayne, they do a lot for that. I know it's still new. It's maybe not to other people's standards yet, but they still have people showing up. Like people, they're nitpicky things, but everybody enjoys it.
They're paying out the top 30.
Yeah, I hate that. But yeah,
who else is doing that?
Well, I'm not. That's another subject.
No, we're not hitting that.
I know.
Not hitting it.
I know. And
But,
pros and cons to everything. Pros and cons to everything.
But shout out to those guys. We love them all, and we will continue to cover all of them and hit you with all the big announcements. And you know, we'll have a 2022 preview show coming up soon. Hopefully, Hobie just released the rest of their schedule. Bass is supposed to be within the next week or two, from what I was told the other day from Dwayne. We should be getting that schedule, and you know, we'll go from there. But thanks everybody for tuning into this long one. Leave us some comments, messages on your opinions, or anything you want to touch further, anything at all. But we appreciate it so much, and we'll see everybody next time. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com